All right, welcome back. Hope you enjoyed that. I thought it was pretty interesting. Learned a lot about water issues and sustainability from around the world and some of the problems people face. I took some notes here as was watching the video myself and um, thought we might talk about them a couple of minutes here. And it's really a lot of it is this idea of water scarcity, right? Like water is scarce. People have a hard time locating it. Um, we in New York City, New York State, and the Northeastern United States, for the most part, aren't hit with these problems as much as many people around the world are. We have fairly abundant water in New York, but we've had droughts in the past before that have had made the city quite concerned. And the city's done a pretty good job of protecting our watershed upstate and expanding it to meet those needs and to, as we've seen with all the reservoirs, to help protect us against droughts. So at least currently we're in pretty good shape, but certainly there's other parts of the US, especially out west in the southwest, Arizona, New Mexico, Utah, California, where they have a lot of problems with water scarcity. And certainly places around the world have even more issues with it. And some of the reasons for that, as we saw, are climate change and the idea that the weather patterns are changing and there's just not as much water in places as there used to be in the past. Population growth, that one's kind of obvious. The more people you have, the more water you're going to need. And rising standards of living kind of goes along with that population growth, right? As people make more money, they want to eat more meat, for instance. And as we saw, that puts a real strain on the system because it takes a lot of water to make meat, much more so than people who live on a vegetarian diet. And that's changing. In the US, it's funny because we know so many people that are eating healthier and vegetarian, but around the world, as people get lifted from, poverty and tough backgrounds, and they're over the generations doing a little bit better and they can afford to have more meat and they kind of want that. So these are all issues for the kind of lead to the scarcity. And again, scarcity is we don't run out of water, right? As we've learned and the video said, all the water is still here. It's just a question of having access to it and a question of being able to continually have enough where we are. And because it's really hard and expensive and takes a lot of energy to move water. So these are just some of the issues that they would talk about. Agriculture, as we kind of just talked about, um, and we'll talk about some of the technology stuff later. And the agriculture is getting better in some ways by not using as much water, and they're able to get more efficient. Let's say there are methods of efficiency, but overall, agriculture, as population continues to grow and people need to eat, it's going to really still be a major issue that needs to be spoken to better than we're doing now. And we heard about this beer plant in Mexico, and that just raises an issue where people down there want to work and they want good jobs. And this place is offering 750 jobs, which sounds like a great deal, but at what cost? At what cost that um, if they're going to be taking water and the people that live there don't have enough, especially the farmers there don't have enough, then what does that mean? And and that's tricky because some of the farmers are not using the water as efficiently as they can, but still that's their life. So these are just complicated issues and we're not going to solve them all now, but it's important to kind of be able to think about them and know them and to be able to learn more about it and take some stands. So what are the things, and then they certainly talked about how to value something like water. How do you put a monetary value on that? Because when you do that, it makes people use it more efficiently and not waste it as much. But the problem is then a lot of people can't afford it at all. And how do you make all of that work? So that's another idea to think about. And they got into ways that we can make it better, ways that we can help speak to some of these problems. As we saw in Cape Town, they were able to conserve water and be smart about how much water they use. Here in New York City, we actually use, as we saw earlier, we use less water per person than we did even 20, 30 years ago through conservation methods. So that's great. They talked about desalination, the idea of taking all of this salt water and making it into drinking water. as was mentioned in the video, it's currently a very expensive and energy intensive process. That's why you don't see more of it. Um, and in our next video, we're going to see one more idea of a way to conserve water and to be more sustainable with our water in the future. So why don't you watch that video now? We'll see you in a little while.